Yeah, I will. Yeah. Shh. Okay.
All panelists got 3 minutes to sum up and talk about the campaign. We're then going to switch out to the second group again. But the only minor change is that Gerard's in this group and Gerard has to leave. So to start off with Gerard, you've got 3 minutes. Feels ready? Great.
Hi, firstly I'd like to apologise for having to leave early. I've just got to get to work. Firstly, I did... Are we? No? Okay, cool. So the main points of my campaign were to firstly say I wasn't going to run a campaign per se, because I think civil disputes within parties sometimes has led to the catastrophe that we have in the national state, and I wanted to show a different way, a green way, and I think everyone here is a phenomenal candidate. I think we've really got, everyone's got a difficult decision on who they vote for and who they vote for first, but I would like to be voted for first because to be the first BME candidate for the Greens on the Assembly would be a great achievement, and London is the most wonderful example of a plural city living in tandem with each other, and I think our party should represent our city. And my main points again was Brexit. We're all bored with it, but it's important. We have rising xenophobia. Our EU nationals are under threat. We should be challenging that at the moment, and we should be fighting for their right to stay without paying that ridiculous £65 fee, and encouraging people to continue supporting freedom of movement, which is an absolutely wonderful privilege to be able to live, learn, work and travel in 27 other member states. And we are the 6th largest economy in the world, and London is the most financially stable city, one of them in the world, because of migration, not in spite of it. So we should really be challenging that. Climate change, we really need to make sure that we are freezing transport fares. If we can't reduce them, at least freezing them. We need to change the hierarchy of our roads for cyclists and pedestrians over motor vehicles, and that can tackle the air pollution that we're currently seeing 9,500 premature deaths in. Services to our most vulnerable elderly, disabled people, and obviously our youth services, which I talked about. We really need to challenge the cuts to our youth services. It's having a devastating effect disproportionately on the working class and disproportionately on minority children. So we really need to stand up to those youth service cuts. That's what I'll be championing on the London Assembly as well. And housing and rent. As a renter I'm now 33 and it's embarrassing, I still have to move back to the family house every now and again. It's unacceptable. I work, but it's really unaffordable. We need truly affordable housing, not the affordable which is 80% of market rate, which Sadiq hasn't changed after Boris introduced it. Genuinely affordable council housing, let's call it council housing again. We need different types of housing, community land trusts, which Sean has supported in Tottenham, and that's what I will be doing on the council as well. And I want to say good luck to everyone. Thanks for everyone for coming out. Sorry I've got to leave. And I hope we've got at least 3 or 4 members on the Assembly.
So the UK is one of the most centralised democracies in Western Europe, with much of the agency to effect change reserved by a central government and the Prime Minister. However, one Green can change everything. The urgency to tackle climate change, as laid out in the latest report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and the urgency of even one person homeless on our streets means we don't have enough time to wait for a Green Assembly, a Green Mayor and a Green Government. We do have a huge capacity to work with radical groups and the grassroots because of our radical necessary policy positions, and us winning votes means we can get the other parties to adopt those important policies. Working with Londoners, Greens can get the Mayor to implement policies which promote radical system overhaul, like getting people out of cars and on decent, safe pavements, bicycles, and on good public transport. If London can show leadership with the trial of universal basic income and things like rent controls, the rest of the UK and Europe will look on in awe and adopt those policies, which make it possible for us to meet the challenge of climate change and widening inequality. Caroline Russell and Sean Berry have done incredible work as members of the London Assembly, and I hope you will vote for me to join them.
I think on the microphone it's easier for candidates to sit down when it's closer to them, because the reason we're getting feedback is because we're having to kind of volume up, so if you could actually just sit down, that'd be great.
Me next?
Yes.
I'll sit as commanded then. So just to remind you, Benali Hamdash. So to start, we have to remember the fact that this is the 5th richest country in the world. We have to acknowledge the fact that so many of issues that blight this country are a political choice. It is a political choice not to take action on homelessness. It is a political choice not to invest in youth services, particularly when the Tories have got money for free schools and grammar schools. It is a political choice to still invest in fossil fuels and not take action on climate change. Our politics is so broken that the politics of hope seem unrealistic. People throw that at the Green Party, that, well, politics aren't realistic. Well, I say the politics of the other parties are unrealistic because they fail to address the crises that we face. The politics of failure is the politics of unrealism, and we are the agents of hope, we are the agents of change, and we will shout loudly and clearly about our optimistic vision for the future. Now, I had the pleasure, or challenge, of working on the Remain campaign. I'm very sorry, it's all my fault. But I went up and down the country talking to people. I went to Sunderland, I went to Newport, I went all over the West Midlands, and people were angry. And I couldn't tell them that they weren't right to be angry. They were angry about not having a job. They were angry about not being able to find a house. And they've been sold a lie by UKIP and our mainstream media. And they chose a choice that they thought would vote for change. And I can't blame them to vote for change. But we need to stand up and say that was the wrong change. The politics of division will not deliver the hope and change you need. It's only the Green Party who have the commitment for people and planet and the holistic ability to point out what we actually need to achieve. And that's how Greens work. I'm so inspired by the Greens on the Assembly. You can point to concrete things that they've achieved, like the living wage, like 20 miles per hour. that have really made an impact for people. And that's what you're doing by voting for me. I'm a policymaker as well as a campaigner. I've really focused in my term in the Green Party looking at what we can do to bring in more policies to address racism and inequality. I'm incredibly proud that the Green Party has a policy of making CVs anonymous. Just this week, The Guardian showed that BME job applicants are still facing the same levels of racism they did in the 60s. Absolutely uncontrolled. And I know this too well myself. I've applied to jobs just as qualified as anyone else, but I have to apply to 7, 8 times more jobs to get an interview than anyone else. I literally had a recruitment agency tell me that I should do some more volunteering when I've just finished working as a senior field campaigner in the Stronger In campaign. That kind of bias needs challenging, and we've championed, as a concrete example, anonymous CVs, and Sean and Caroline have done fantastic work doing it. On the Assembly, I'd continue to champion those big ideas that will blow up inequality and say that the Green Party is on your side and is a champion for all Londoners.
Feels really weird to be sitting down for this. I was totally ready to stand up. Anyway, here we go. I'm Caroline Russell again. Climate change is the biggest issue facing us, and tackling it needs to be a mission at the heart of all public policy making. One of my proudest moments as an Assembly member is getting the Mayor to declare a climate emergency and to update his plans, first to make them 1.5 degrees compatible, that's compatible with the Paris Climate Agreement, and then just this week at Mayor's Question Time, getting him to commit to do the analysis to bring forward his timescale from 2050 to 2030, just as Gulna was suggesting needed to be done when she was speaking earlier. And I was glad to speak this week in support of the Mayor's call for the withdrawal of Article 50 and in favour of a people's vote. I'm on the EU Exit Committee at City Hall and only too aware of the plight of EU citizens who are facing Theresa May's hostile environment and the threat that the shocking treatment given to the Windrush generation may be extended to them. But it's not all about global and national catastrophes. On a really practical level, my grassroots work as an Islington councillor has informed my work on the Assembly. Residents across my ward, like the woman Benali referred to earlier, trusted me to show me they suffer from cold, damp, mouldy homes with condensation worsened by overcrowding, new plastic windows, and fuel poverty. Based on that councillor experience and a visit to Thamesmead, I'm shortly publishing a London Assembly report looking at solutions that are both affordable and able to be rolled out widely. I'm so looking forward to working with a campaign team that represents all Londoners. And today I'm asking you to put me at the top of the candidate list. The most important thing for Londoners and London Green Party is that we select a strong team and run the best campaign we've ever run. A larger Green group on the London Assembly will mean a London Assembly that listens to Londoners, works for Londoners, and stands up for Londoners. Sian and I have proved, by the way that we work, the impact a small group of Greens can have on the London Assembly, and that's why I hope you'll reselect me at the head of our list of candidates representing the Green Party in this next election. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Andrew again. Yes, just hearing Sian and Caroline speak about all their achievements and everything they've done is fantastic, and that's what makes me proud to be a Green and makes me stick as a Green, as I said before. So I reiterate some of the things I said, that my stand is a community one, and in that respect, although it may not do me any favours, I'd like to see people select a diverse group of candidates for the top 11 for the London list, and I myself will be supporting a diverse range of people in addition to Caroline and Sian as well, on the basis of all the work that they've done. I think it's key that we have people that are on the London list that understand the enormous task that is before everybody really, in terms of making London a better, a fairer place to live in. And that really does go back to changing the culture, I think, of the GLA. And if we've got a good, strong team for the London list, I think, one of the main things the team really needs to do is to get messages out there that what needs to happen is that London needs to be open for all Londoners, starting from the grassroots up, and not just for the big businesses and the big money that's in London that is effectively still running London. And, that we are a force to be reckoned with in terms of Sadiq's policies, because, my goodness, they do need scrutiny and monitoring. It's all right for Sadiq to say he wants to see more houses built in smaller plots of land, but we have to look at what that means in relation to green and open spaces, and the fact we have an open space deficiency all across London, the impact that that has on availability for play for young people, in terms of the health and welfare, and not just mental health, but access for children to have places to play, and not just children, but intergenerational health, in terms of anyone who wants some peace from the humdrum of everyday life and is using places like wildlife gardens or nature reserves or just parks or open spaces. And that's what we really need to focus on. Because I have a sort of a children's rights background and I have a teenage daughter myself, I'm very much pushing for young people's rights and young people to have a stronger voice. And the only way to do that effectively is we need representation from young people and from communities in all aspects of the GLA, in terms of all of the committees. They can't just be closed committees anymore, they need to be open to allow people to influence what happens. So vote for the team that you think's right to do that.
Hello again. Wow, some absolutely brilliant candidates. Oh my gosh. You've got a really tough call later. So maybe I should explain why I think you should vote for me. I'm really an ideas guy. I was a master inventor at IBM, and now I'm the principal engineer at the Financial Times. I've got 25 patents to my name, and I make it my business to create good ideas. I'm very pragmatic. In my role at the Financial Times, I manage 40 engineers, working with lots of different departments, and I really need to be able to solve problems quickly and make things happen. But I'm also a compassionate guy. I grew up deaf-blind, and I have had to face many barriers and many challenges and overcome them. So I can empathise with people who struggle in life. Earlier, I told you what I felt were my personal priorities for the Green Party in London, but it's you who are going to help me, if I am elected, to decide what the priorities need to be, to make that decision. I'm a firm believer in teamwork. Sian and Caroline have done a fantastic job campaigning in London, and also for disability rights. But it's a little bit like, if we had women asking an all-male assembly to fight for women's rights. That's not how it works. Jonathan Bartley asked me, would you like to stand? And he also invited me to launch the Disability Manifesto in the general election. We did that together. So I would like to ask you for your help to make history and become the first deafblind person in politics to be elected. If you would like to see a more equal, a more compassionate, a greener and cleaner London, then please vote for me, Ben Fletcher. Thank you.
Hi, I am still Ronald Stewart. So I want to talk about some of my achievements in the Green Party. I've been a member since 2015, and as part of my membership in Haringey Green Party in North London, I took a study of air pollution in Haringey to the Green Party, and we went out and we measured nitrogen dioxide levels, which is a lung-damaging pollutant, in Haringey. And what we found was that the level of pollutants was higher than models predicted, and it broke EU law with more than double the EU permitted levels of pollutants in Haringey. That was especially on our high streets. We measured in front of schools, on school runs, and I think it's really important that we have that data, but I also think it's really important that we use that data and we take action. And so we should be talking about enabling play streets and school streets so that school streets are closed for our children. And we should be closing our roads on high pollution days, like they do in other European cities. We should be pedestrianising areas and talking about prioritising pedestrians. We should be taking best practice from other European cities. And that's something that I will bring to the Assembly. So Greens, we must have the data, but we must also take action. I think it's really exciting to be on this panel, and so thank you to all the candidates. You have a really difficult choice. It's a great set of candidates to choose from, and I feel really proud of my part in that process. So I actually chaired a group to write the rules for this election, and my priority there was to enable us to have a diverse set of candidates that reflects London, and I think we've done a good job. So I feel a bit emotional. So one of my priorities there was to ensure that we have a BME candidate in the top 3, and that is guaranteed by the rules that we will have a BME candidate in the top 3, being a much better representation of London than we have been, and I hope that we'll elect that 3 people. I work as a teacher, and I worked on the Green Party's education policy, and I've spoken to people who have joined the Green Party because our education policy is fantastic, and we need to take that to the Assembly. And as someone with that knowledge and experience, I can take our education policy to the Assembly where it hasn't been heard before. I also want to use my last 20 seconds to say that I believe that preventing climate change is a left-wing project. Preventing people from accruing huge amounts of wealth and resources is what we should prioritise. We should be sharing our resources equally between everyone. I reject the rhetoric that we're not left, not right. I think we're a left-wing party, and we should be proud to be a left-wing party. Please vote for me.
And I'm still Peter Underwood. We face a lot of problems. There's the rise of the far right and all of their nastiness. We see dreadful inequalities in income, in wealth, in property, the way people live, and of course there's the climate emergency. We desperately need green politics, and we desperately need more green politicians elected to help tackle those. We are the antidote to fascism. Our compassionate way of looking at the world and working with people, that is the solution to fascism. We are different. We are the alternative to the failed old parties. As I've said to many people, if you keep voting the same way, you'll get the same old politics. If you want something better, you need to vote green. We are different. We shouldn't be afraid to be different. People are fed up with the old style of politicians. We can be different. In terms of the way I'm approaching this campaign, I'm standing as mayoral candidate, but I don't want to be mayor of London. I want to be mayor for London. It's green policy. We don't think the power should be put in the hands of one person. We should be empowering people to make those changes, anybody in that position, their mission should be to put that power back in the hands of people. And as Green Assembly members, we should be helping that to happen. In terms of my style of running this internal campaign, this isn't a criticism of any other candidates, but I promised before the start of the campaign that I wouldn't be spending any money on internal campaigning. Partly because I think that money should go to our external campaign, but it's also showing that you don't need money to get on in politics. Coming from a working class background, that shouldn't make any difference how much money I've got to be able to promote my campaign. There's plenty of information out there about me in terms of what's on the websites. You can look on my Facebook and Twitter if you wish to find out more about me. I'll be around afterwards. You can ask questions if you want to. But I trust you're able to make that judgment without fancy leaflets and videos and all the rest that goes with it. It's me. You either choose me or you don't. So thank you for coming. I hope you do choose me to be part of that team, and with the way our system works, I hope you put me at the top of your list, because that gives me a chance of actually being part of that team. Thank you all very much.
And I'm still Matthew Crowley. I just want to reiterate that despite the fact that I'm 22, I am not just here to be another young person on a panel for the sake of it. I want to be here to represent all of London and actually be a uniting force that can to represent people from a unique perspective. And just because this hasn't really come up yet and as an issue, and usually doesn't, I want to actually touch on accessibility of London for disabled people, because it really doesn't actually get much mention. From the TfL's own figures, by 2022, only 40% of the train network in London with underground and overground will have step-free access for people to actually get on trains from Clapham Street. And with the resources that London has and the global city that we are, I think this is quite frankly nothing short of a disgrace. That within 2 years, we will still have 60% of our underground and overground services not accessible to enough people. And if you tell people that 60% of an area of London still isn't accessible for someone, we'll be outraged from the street. It's not an actually thing, and it's something that the Green Party particularly needs to push on and make an issue in the London Assembly, because this doesn't get spoken about enough. And as someone with a friend in a wheelchair, this really does actually hit me, going out in London with him. Throughout the London campaign, just on a more party political basis, it's pretty much guaranteed that Labour and Conservatives, as per usual, will probably dominate the headlines with party political point scoring and nothing really of substance. But the Green Party over the years has shown time and again that we're the ones that go above and beyond that. We're past party politics, or party political point scoring, and as Sean, Caroline have already proven, Darren Johnson and Jenny Jones before them, we've shown that we're the ones that want to cross over and reach over across the table, create cross-party consensus around politics, and lead the way on good policies, so not only work for people, but actually last because we get agreement with others. And on that note, I just want to take the opportunity to also thank you all for coming and spending a Saturday afternoon here listening to 20-odd candidates. It's been an experience being part of it with so many people. Just to touch and reiterate on the things that the Green Party have already achieved in the London Assembly, from quite literally paving the way for better cycling routes, creating the London Living Wage Unit, both exposing youth service cuts in London and then fighting to get more funding for them, Sean. These are all big wins that the Green Party have shown that we can have, and I'd love to be a part of actually making that happen, whether that's in the London Assembly or being part of that team of 11 that helps get Sean and Caroline re-elected, because I think there should be 1 and 2 again. And making sure that this party, unlike Labour and Conservatives, for me, show that, like my parents, to give a hope that, like my grandparents and grandparents, London can still be a place where you can actually create your home, see your future here, and have some security and stability in London to live in. Thank you very much.
I'm still Zach Polanski, to follow a theme. Thank you again also for all being here, particularly thank you to Hannah. She said it was the first hustings, and it's been a pretty marathon hustings with 22 candidates, so thank you for your steely determination. I won't applaud you because I've only got 2 minutes 50 seconds left, but later. Talking about steely determination, I was with Caroline the other morning, Tuesday morning, quite early in the morning, protesting against Heathrow. Caroline kindly called me chief chanter, and one of the chants we were given was people power, people power. And people were really into it because it's instinctive. We should have power. We should have agency. We should be able to have an influence on politics and make London exactly what we want it to be. Now, I'm Jewish and gay, so I know what it's like to be different. But you don't have to be different to have compassion. You don't have to be different to look around at the state of our city and see the homeless people who are out on the streets and think, that's not right. It's not right when there's 20,000 empty buildings with no one living in them, and then there's people hungry, cold, and starving on our streets. And we need to do something about it. Now, I live in Oxford Circus. Whenever I say that to people, I immediately go, but I'm not wealthy. And that's because I live in a Guardian property. I'm not trying to compete with it, well, I am competing with other candidates, but I'm not trying to compete with other candidates about living conditions. But I've moved house 12 times in 10 years around London. So it becomes very difficult to ever have a local community. Now, one of the reasons that people become homeless is because they come to the end of their tendencies. A quarter of homeless people are LGBT plus. And also, I think we need to be making sure that we're giving a voice. Previously, people would say, not green people, but they're homeless, they can't vote. Well, that's partly about green politics, is giving voices to the voiceless, and we need to be standing up for them, and we need to be doing that loud and clear. Cycling, we've not had a huge amount of time to talk about today, but it's January the 19th, there's been 11 deaths on the road this year. That's not inevitable, it's political, it's about political will, it's about standing up to a car lobby and saying, actually, roads should be there for cyclists and pedestrians and public transport. It should be safe for everyone. 3/4 of traffic collisions are on dangerous junctions. We can do something about that. Caroline and Sean have been doing something about that. We need to be doing more, and we need to be pushing for that. In summary, if you want a candidate who's a campaigner, I'm a spokesperson for the British Red Cross, I'm a spokesperson for proportional representation. I also help write policy. I'm on the working group for universal basic income. If you want someone who will relentlessly work hard, who will be a human being, who will speak human, who will go on the media, who's an established media performer, who can talk on TV or radio and do it comfortably, please vote for me. If you're voting for me, you're voting for diversity, hope and change. You're voting for a breath of fresh air. I'm Zach Polanski. I'm also running for mayoral candidate. To quote Gulnar before, vote for me!
Okay, we're going to switch, so meet from the second hand to come back.
Yeah, I've got it's all on the thing here. Do you want one of my things?
That's okay, I'll find it.
Yeah.
So that's your Facebook page?
Facebook, yeah, and I'm
Still, you know, like,
Green and Chris.
Hey, Green and
There are, just to remind you, there are 4 candidates who are represented here today. Forrest Follett, James Braun, Stephanie Rio nominations. So you also have to vote for those 4. They aren't here to agree at some speech, but to give them at least less than a minute so you remember their names there with here. So we're going to go from this side down 3 minutes again. So we can start. Yeah.
So do you want me to move that?
Right. It's Kirsten from Camden again. Actually, listening to all these 22 candidates, I think we should just get rid of all this and stage a coup. Can you imagine these 22 people round that table in City Hall? I mean, the place would be like a different city altogether, but back to reality, unfortunately. And I mean, when I get up, when you talk about the environment, you have to start thinking of, from when you open your eyes in the morning, what do you do? Well, you breathe. So you think, well, that's obviously quite essential. So let's start concentrating on the air. But the problem is that it's a chain reaction. And my campaign really homes in on that, is that everything is connected. And I know that that's a given, that everybody says, yes, of course it is. But, for instance, I had a conversation this morning, actually, with somebody about targeting oil companies. And I said, well, actually, it's a slight waste of time targeting oil companies because they're just responding to a demand. Demand is what drives them. If nobody wants oil, they wouldn't drill. So we need to target consumption. We need to target meat, with Caroline's meat tax, for instance, which I'm not entirely sure about, but I can see where she's coming from. We need to target consumption in terms of building. You know, we need to have flat pack bills or flat pack bills, things like that. We need to be bold in our ideas, new ideas, fresh ideas that don't rely so much on resources and oil and plastics and goodness knows what. So that's where I'm coming from in terms of the environment. It's air, water, transport, consumption, meat, all those things together. In terms of housing, I think rents are really, really important, both for housing and for business. On the housing side, we need to cap the rents, control the rents. We also need to downsize. We need to try and incentivize people who live in huge buildings to actually live in huge houses to downsize. So that's another really important aspect of how to sort out our housing situation. And I think finally, businesses, local businesses, small shops, etc., which safeguard our high streets are massively important, and we need to tackle central government there because they have too much control. And we need empty shops turned into youth centres. We need rents and rates to be totally modernised. And those are areas that we, as a London party, can actually play a big part in. Thank you.
I was brought up by a single mother on a council estate in Edinburgh. And from that I got a deep sense of what it's like to have no money. She wasn't even working class. I guess she was kind of like, you know, off the scale. From that I got a deep sense of injustice and how hard I know how hard she had to fight to bring up 2 kids on her own, and how hard you've got to fight to get your voice heard. Without the freedom I had in my public library, I wouldn't have had a safe space. I wouldn't have been able to have had the space, like Jarell was talking about earlier, to actually build my own imagination and allow my own ideas to flourish. And I am thankful for that. That's why I've been an avid campaigner, because it's personal for me that Lambeth Labour have tried to shut down libraries ashamedly, and I will fight for public spaces, public libraries, public parks, and for these places just to be, so that we have the freedom to breathe and just be, without having to spend money and be economic units. I became an environmental activist because some of my ideas formed at the age of 14, and those, I've been a member of Greenpeace Friends all my life, so I am bloody passionate about a climate emergency and getting people to not just sign up and say things, but bloody well deliver on a specific date. And if they don't, we keep them accountable, we keep the torch shining on them. I became a founding member of Sustainable Streatham back in 2009. And I'm a father to 2 girls. They are now 15 and 13, because I wanted to make the London that they grew up in safer, cleaner, greener, fairer. And that's where I met Jonathan Bartley when I was putting on pedal-powered cinema events to raise the awareness of environmentalism. My 2 girls take asthma inhalers. My youngest one particularly has got a problem with breathing. This is really, really an emergency, a public health emergency, and I applaud the work that you guys are doing on the Assembly, Caroline and Sean, for raising this issue, keeping this issue there and bloody well damn well making sure that they deliver as soon as possible. I've been cycling into the East End from southwest London. I feel sick at the end of my journey because I've been breathing in toxic air. I mean, really sick. I ask you to go and have a look at my website. I've, have a look at some of the people, the testimonies that they've given, the people that I've stood up for in Lambeth. Historic child abuse on an industrial scale. Appalling. And see what people have said about the fact that there's been a chink in people's armour. I want you to vote for me on the first choice on the London list and get another strong fighter to join the already strong fighters that we have who have got a great track record on delivering for people.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for everything you've said so far. I'm pleased that so many of the people speaking today have spoken about the value of working as a team. I've started to jot down who's mentioned it, but most of you, in fact. I won't read out all your names. I think that is what makes the Green Party work, that we're a unified team. And I talked about the teamwork that me and Caroline have done in the London Assembly, and thank you to Rosemary for pulling the curtain back on our Mayor's Question Time strategy there as well. But I think it is absolute that we are organised to that degree. And we learned that from Darren and Jenny, whose achievements I don't think have had enough attention at this hustings today. They should have had as many shout-outs and as many bits of applause as me and Caroline, because they did an amazing job for 16 years. So I don't want you to forget. We've got some amazing candidates today, though, who've spoken. Some of them are really new faces, but no less talented for that. And I think it's really important that you go and you read their statements and see what they've achieved, maybe out of the spotlight, and the expertise they can bring to this election. I think it's really important that you do that. We are selecting with over a year to go, and last time we selected with 7 months to go. So that's a significant amount of extra time for us to work on our campaign. I think it means we're virtually guaranteed to be more successful. And one of the things it enables us to do with a year and a bit to go is work even harder to come up with those good ideas. Our last campaign, our slogan was the power of good ideas. We had a series of really good ideas which have guided mine and Caroline's work. We've got a lot of those things done. But other things that it's impossible to do and actually met. Things like flattening the fares, closing City Airport, setting up a bank for London, which we haven't got the mayor to do. People still bring those up at people's question time, much to the mayor's annoyance, because they are such good ideas. So I think we should be working on them right now. If people have ideas, they can bring them to us, and we can use our work in City Hall to develop them further, and I think that would be a really good thing to do. We also have a huge opportunity because we've got a tired, we've got a rubbish, we've got a divided Conservative Party out there, and we should be snapping at their heels in this election. And we have a mayor who isn't all that interested in our issues, except when he's worrying that we're going to write something about him in a green leaflet. He started talking about green leaflets in Mayor's Question Time, and I think he thinks he's being clever, but I just think it's a dead giveaway that he's worried about us. And he does have cause, because we are, like I said before, the most popular, the most liked party. And the thing that's missing, very, very slightly, is credibility, a belief that voting for us is worth it. And in this election, we have PR, so vote for us is worth it. We're building up our credibility so we can convince people that we'll get something done if they vote for us. And I think we can do brilliantly in this election. I'm standing for mayoral candidate as well, and I hope you will vote for me in both. Thank you.
I actually want to start off by saying that I'd like to thank Caroline and Sean, actually, because they actually encouraged me to put myself forward. No, I mean really encouraged me, because I actually wasn't going to. Can I just apologise as well that I sort of took that break, Sean, and I hope you... Sorry, I must apologise to you for just getting up there, but I just couldn't. Air pollution is a public health crisis. So this year, what I'm actually going to be doing is I'm actually going to be going around the country and raising awareness. That is what I've been set the task to actually do. I have got an incredibly high job. I need to convince the British public that this is a crisis and this isn't something that is actually made up. So wish me luck on that one. Why so? 77,000 asthma attacks last year, and in England, 5.4 million people have asthma, and 1.1 million of them are children. In London, it continues to go up and up and up and up. And I will be meeting the Mayor of London about this. And you may see me around the tea charge. I haven't joined the Labour Party. I just have to do this. I need a purpose to get up in the morning. So I get slack because, you know, it's very important to me that young people don't continue to die from asthma. We are the third worst in Europe after Estonia and Spain. It's an absolute disgrace. The government must bring in a scrappage scheme. And diesel 2040, 210 children would have died by then. It is absolutely not acceptable. It needs to be, I mean, I'm prepared to compromise it to in 2030. Personally, I think it should be 2025. And behind the scenes, I'm going to be pushing and pushing and pushing on that. Every child has the right to breathe clean air. So I am going to join the World Health Organization's team to do with Every Breath Matters. I will do everything I can to get my stuff across. For communities in London, a lot of them are poor. Climate change means nothing, but you talk about air pollution, and it's one of the top 3 issues for parents in London. Regarding public transport, I think under 19s, they should all be free, as long as you stay in full-time education. And what people need to understand, as long as public transport is more expensive than private cars, people will choose their cars. This is just a simple thing. Housing, we need to build at least 65,000 houses every year to meet the current demand. And I think private developer and housing associations, councils, they all should work together to solve this crisis. And I'm going to end with young people by saying I started teaching in 1997, and I relate to them very well. It doesn't matter their race, I relate to all people, so give me a chance.
I think my background is quite different from some of the other people here. I'm, like many of us, a Londoner by choice. I grew up on a farm in Staffordshire, where the nearest bus stop was a mile from my home. I had an hour commute each way to school from the age of 11. And the bus service stopped at 6:30 in the evening. So we were entirely dependent on a car. The nearest cinema was 10 miles away. The nearest swimming pool was 10 miles away. Education was the way out of that community. When I was 16, I realised I got O-levels that was good with my brother's, and he was automatically university, and so it was, I can do it too. I can be out of here. And that was this focus, to be out of here and to be in London. And I wanted to come to London. I really wanted to stay. It's a choice. And but having those educational opportunities, having the libraries, having the space for people to realise the potential and to leave whatever box they're in, and because that experience, imagination, there are no restrictions, there's no limits on those, and we should encourage that. I'm on the steering group of Transition Leytonstone. We're one of the groups that are running a community fridge and working with food waste and people in food poverty and educating people to waste less food on a completely no questions asked basis. And to do that and to talk to people, of all kinds of people, is hugely important. So I'm bringing that to my campaign as well. But we are very much to go back to the whole campaign. We need to work together, we need to do tactics, we need to be very clear about where we're working to raise the Green vote in specific areas, in the target to win areas, and to get people back, and not only to convince people to vote Green, but to get that Green vote out, but also to be visible more generally, to get people to vote Green when they've not been targeted as well. And that is going to be a huge challenge for us, and we need to be a really organised, tight campaign to do that. And I really think I would be part of that team. Thank
you. Can people hear me even without the microphone? Yeah. Because I really like to see people's faces. Thank you. So I just want to...
Hearing faces up.
Big pardon? That's okay, isn't it? I just like to be able to see people's faces. Yeah, we're okay. So there are three things I really...
If everyone else has sat down, you should probably...
Yeah, okay, that's fine. So there are three things that I really want to talk about. Firstly, we've been talking about diversity, and you can get a BME person in the top three. Now, I don't see myself first and foremost as a BME person. I see myself as a Green. So incidentally, you can elect a BME person. You can elect them to the top of the list if you wish. In the same way that nobody may have expected, shall we say, to get a Muslim mayor of London. I think that's something which would help the Green Party's credibility, frankly, because we don't really have the diversity at the top, visibly, that we need. But if you elect me, I want you to elect me as a Green, first and foremost. Secondly, on the matter of diversity, there's been a lot of applause and praise, rightly so, for current Assembly members and past Assembly members, and I have worked very closely, privileged Darren and Jenny, and also I hope you will have seen how closely I've worked in 2004, 2008, 2012, 2016 also to get Assembly members elected. And I think one of the ingredients that you should want of any person Green in a team is the ability to disagree. And I do think that part of the diversity of the Green Party is a diversity of thinking. And there are things, just to relate to a couple of things which I have disagreement on, but mature disagreement. So I don't think that the City Hall should have passed in February 2017 the IHRA definition, International Holocaust Remembrance Association, because I think that clamps free speech. I believe that that makes it more difficult for us to call out oppressors internationally when we should be standing up for Palestinians in London and internationally, unapologetically, according to Green Party policy. So that accountability, I think you require as an Assembly member. Secondly, we need to be reaching out to women. And anybody who understands a little bit about Green Party politics understands that it's becoming an act of heresy, would you believe, to actually agree to meet with women's groups. That is appalling. When a party member thinks that they can sabotage a women's group meeting to discuss their concerns about legislative changes. And I want to see women front and centre of our campaign, if only because the Women's Equality Party is right on our doorstep. And finally, climate change. Now, when I was chairing a meeting in City Hall in 2004, actually, Ken Livingstone said it's too late. I don't believe it's too late. It's not too late if we understand and get a reality check about how serious it is. And we stop underestimating the population and the voters. Because they want to hear it. They have a great appetite to hear from politicians who are not just putting themselves first or at all. They're not looking after number one. And they're saying loud and clear that Green politics is politics with a vengeance. We are different. And if you vote for me, you are voting for the Green Party, you are voting for the future, and you are stepping up to the planet. Thank you.
Yeah, does that work? Gulnar Hasnain, does it work? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I'm not standing for the mayor, but I am standing for the assembly role. And the assembly role is a team role, and it takes time and constant pressure to make change happen. It is not just about being politically savvy. What is needed is cross-party working, the ability to work across groups, engage with your biggest detractors to change opinion and behaviour, to unite people, not divide them. So I believe I have the experience to do that. As an assembly member, I will focus on the forgotten Londoners, those in the south and the outer boroughs, those facing discrimination, those who are homeless, those who are having their homes threatened by demolition. I'll be honest about how we can deliver on our climate change challenge and push for the Mayor to be realistic about actual delivery on the ground. It's all very well having a strategy, but can we practically deliver? And I will not let the Mayor break his promise to make our streets safer. It's incredible that London now has a violent crime rate greater than New York. But I think it's important that we learn from other cities. The former Mayor of Bogota transformed the city into one of the most greenest, most accessible cities in the world. Now, if he can do it for Bogota, we can do it here. We need to address the rapidly rising inequality in London. We need to make our streets safe for all. We need to put climate change and the most vulnerable at the centre of our city planning. I have helped build the capacity of the local party and have been part of the local efforts to stop the demolition of our housing estates, the campaign to save our libraries across London, and I've kick-started our air pollution campaign back in the day, winning funding to undertake our own air quality monitoring project. I joined the Lambeth Green Party when only 5 people turned up to meetings, and we are now the official opposition on council with 5 councillors. I have stood as a parliamentary candidate twice, coming 3rd in Vauxhall, and I've stood in council elections. So I am hopeful for London, and I am certain that we have the power as Greens, working as a team, being a strong green voice to transform things. So I am going to have a final message. I do want you to vote for me, Gulnar Hasnain, in your top 1, 2, 3. And I do want you to make me the first Green BME Assembly member for London. Thank you very much.
Hannah Graham, last but hopefully not least. The ambition to form England's 3rd biggest party is not out of reach. Sean has shown this city by placing 3rd as London Mayor in 2016. But as part of this process to stay radical, there should be no compromise on our green vision. I've always shaped their own lives. But there are so many problems affecting London youth. We've talked about a lot of them. As Green candidate, I will be in a really privileged position to tackle many of these issues. As a first step, I would lobby for a Mayor's Youth Londoners Fund to reinstate the entirety of the cuts to the youth services. I would create an advisory board made up of these services and, most importantly, their beneficiaries, young people on the panel, to ensure that any measures proposed do meet and are able to adapt to the ever-changing needs of London's youth. Young people should have a seat on the table in decisions that concern and affect them. When planning housing, shops, transport routes, crime and violence initiatives, young people should be consulted, they should inform the decision, and they should be taken seriously. Growing up, attending my local youth club was key to my personal development. Young people in London deserve non-commercial opportunities to be able to engage and participate in sport, art, culture and heritage, budgets that are often the first to be cut. Without a full standardised youth service, we risk seeing many young people fall into harmful or unsuitable paths. Housing is obviously another major worry for all young people and many others as well. The increasingly high cost of renting makes it impossible for many to secure a property. Affordable accommodation, rent controls and a living wage are imperative to solve this problem, as well as reinstating the Back to Work programme, which gave young people 2 weeks support when moving from welfare payments to paid employment. This lifeline ensured that many young people were not sanctioned and subsequently put into rent arrears during their first month of working. That's been scrapped. Young people want to feel safe and to look to the future with hope. It's high time that politicians view young people as assets rather than problems to be solved.
With me, you'll get a track record of working with London's young people on a daily basis and somebody that understands what youth empowerment really means. With me, you'll get a relatable and transparent Assembly member who promises to be a vibrant and positive force in City Hall. It's vital we select candidates who understand the true diversity of experiences found in our city. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all the candidates, thank you to all of you. And one person who never elevator thanks, actually, very rarely. So you are right, so thank you, We've got this room for about 15 more minutes, so you can grab the candidates as well as the practice, but otherwise, happy Saturday.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for being with us. Okay, if you're curious about the baby, that's the one. Anyway, okay, thank you so much, and then see you later on. Hopefully you've seen some of the great candidates that's actually going to be running for the Green Party. So yeah, please vote, share this to people you know who are part of the Green Party, or share it to people who actually are your friends who are not so political at the moment. And watch them, watch the hustings. Thank you, and please share. Thank you.